Will the port city of Mariupol be the next to fall? This very beautiful industrial city on the Sea of Azov has been battered by Russian forces almost relentlessly for the past 47 days and counting. The Ukrainian forces are fighting hard. They've held on to the city. The Azov forces, the neo-Nazis as the Russians call them, have been holding on to some pockets in the city, but just about. The information here is this is practically the last stand for Mariupol, because the information that's coming out seems to indicate that the forces are running out of ammunition. They've been surrounded and now they're being battered. Both missiles, airstrikes, rocket strikes, and now tanks inside the city. We bring you this report.
Nearly 50 days of the war in Ukraine, and Russia hasn't let up its offensive. And Putin's eye is on the port city of Mariupol, a city that's been completely battered in the last 5 weeks of relentless Russian shelling. Since the Russian forces laid siege on the port city, more than 5,000 people, including 210 children, have been killed, according to the Mariupol mayor. While Russia has claimed that Mariupol is already in their control, Ukraine has dubbed it the last battle of Mariupol. This is a drama theatre that served as a shelter for hundreds of civilians. The theatre was once home to nights of revelry and art. It is now in ruins. Ukraine fears the worst is yet to come for the people of Mariupol, as Zelensky has warned of chemical weapons being used by Russia soon.
Today, we heard a statement from the occupiers confirming they are preparing for a new stage in their terror against us and our defenders. One of the spokesperson of the invaders said they are considering using chemical weapons against the defenders of Mariupol. We take it very seriously. I want to remind world leaders that a possible use of chemical weapons had been already discussed by the Russian military. At the time, it meant the reaction to the Russian aggression should have been harsher and faster.
Ukraine's President Zelensky has also expressed his apprehension that Russian forces could use chemical weapons in this conflict. Especially, the apprehension is this could happen in and around Mariupol, where the Azov forces are fighting on in some pockets. In those pockets of resistance, Ukrainian forces fear that chemical weapons may be used to remove any pockets of resistance.
It isn't just Mariupol. New satellite images show an 8-mile-long convoy of Russian military vehicles moving south through the town of Veliki Burluk in eastern Ukraine. The town sits about 15 miles west of the Russian border in Kyiv, which has seen intense fighting since the beginning of the invasion. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Russia does not intend to pause hostilities during the talks with Ukraine.
During the first round of talks, President Putin ordered to suspend military action and the special military operation. After we became convinced that the Ukrainians were not planning to reciprocate, a decision was made that during the next round of talks, there would be no pause so long as a final agreement is not reached and signed.
With Gaurav Sawant and Mausami Singh in Ukraine war zone, Bureau Report, India Today.
Like Mariupol, Irpin, Bucha, Hostomel, even Mykolaiv has been battered in the Russian assault. The airport was targeted, like the airport here where we are in Dnipro. Buildings have been targeted, reduced virtually to rubble. Almost nothing has been left standing in pockets of Mykolaiv. India Today's Mausami Singh and Parvinder Sharma are on ground zero, and they've sent us this report from Mykolaiv, currently in the line of Russian fire.
Shelled shaken, destroyed. Over a month of brutal assault on Ukraine has left many towns in ruins. Bashtanka, a suburb of Mykolaiv, is one of them. Non-stop shelling from Russian forces has almost reduced the city to dust. Mykolaiv itself is not spared. Relentless attacks by Russians have razed the Mykolaiv airport to the ground.
The sound of music greeted the customers as they reached the international airport of Mykolaiv. But now there is only sound of silence and destruction. This is the picture of an airport which was of great strategic importance. Only airport in this area that actually could have had modern facilities and heavy planes could land in this area. But just take a look. This is the view of the entry point. You enter from that gate. That is the gate, and the gate looks like this. The entire glass is of course shattered, and you entered and you would see a modernized airport, but what you see is only destruction here. Some volunteers, their jackets also lying here, and glasses. We are told we cannot go inside because there are some active ammunition still. But Dnipro sir, who's the public relations officer, who's brought us here, getting you these exclusive pictures. Dnipro sir, the Russians have been targeting your airports, and this airport was bombed because they couldn't take control of it.
Yes, they don't have control of this airport, and when he misunderstands, they bombing airports. This is first and last airport international Mykolaiv, and Mykolaiv region too.
In Bashtanka, residential areas have also been hit hard.
In good old days, this counter would provide heal and cure and medicine to the people who were sick. But you can see that this counter is turned into a rubble. Medicines burnt, destroyed pamphlets. This counter looks like one dilapidated shop. It doesn't even look like a semblance of a shop. And here you can see how people are picking up the pieces here. A doctor's coat, some medicines, some pamphlets, and pieces of decoration. This side was a pharmacy, and here what you see was a bakery shop that ran. It was a very famous bakery by the name of Small Bakery. Bakerna is what they call in their language. And this bakery used to serve pastries and muffins to children. It was a favorite joint for the people of Bashtanka, but perhaps they will have to live with this hopelessness for a while, because the Russian troops actually reached Bashtanka village hoping to reclaim Mykolaiv.
Russian shelling, however, hasn't broken Ukrainians' will. Ukrainian troops are fighting back the invaders in Mykolaiv. They've seized more than 115 tanks as well as trucks with heavy ammunition.
This is a symbolic picture of how the Russian forces are facing a stiff, aggressive Ukrainian defense force. This is a Russian truck, Ural, that you see on which we are standing, and how this has been completely destroyed after being bombarded. This truck was actually heading to a Russian base point where it was carrying cruise missiles, a lot of ammunitions, almost 80 ammunitions that it was carrying to target Bashtanka village. And here you can see that these broken parts, these plates, of course this has been sanitized, but 890 is the number that you see. Some signs of the manufacturing of this Russian truck that was carrying cruise missiles, we are told. And here on the tire, You can see that made in Russia, made in February 1995. So February 1995, made in Russian truck that is completely burnt. Right there, the steering wheel and the cabin completely destroyed. Here you can see that nothing is remaining. They had actually, the Ukrainian forces sanitized this entire area. This is the door that is actually jutting out of this truck. And of course, the attempt by the Russian forces was actually defunct because of the alertness of the Ukrainian forces, who did air raids only after the Russian troops were fleeing. This truck was also fleeing from the location, but before that it met its fate. And here India today, in fact, is the only Indian crew to reach Bashtanka, which is on the outskirts, far away from Mykolaiv. But all the entire region of Mykolaiv is facing a lot of fire, a lot of battle, combat on the periphery, because the Russians are just on the doorstep at Kherson, and they want to take Mykolaiv, which is the last barrier standing, to capture the entire southern part of Ukraine and cut it off from the sea. With video journalist Parminder Sharma, getting you all the ground reports from the war zone in Mykolaiv and Ukraine for India.
A 64-year-old man was reportedly killed when his vehicle went over an unexploded anti-tank mine in the Chernihiv region. And Chernihiv, the Russians have withdrawn from there, but they've left behind a lot of unexploded ammunition. There are anti-tank mines, anti-personnel mines. There are also hundreds of grenades and rockets that have been recovered. And of course, Russian tanks and armored personnel carriers. Chernihiv again has been completely destroyed. It will be under curfew for some time before all of this ammunition is recovered and safely detonated by engineers. But India Today's soldier reporter Rajesh Pawar in Chernihiv with this report.
Russia continues its relentless attacks in Ukraine. And while Russian troops are now positioned in south and east Ukraine, they've left nothing but ruins behind in their wake in the suburbs of capital Kyiv. Days after Russia's withdrawal from parts of Kyiv, the scale of destruction is coming to the fore.
I'm right now in the small town of Stoyanka, which is about 30 kilometers from Kyiv, and behind me you can see a supermarket which has been completely devastated, completely destroyed in a missile attack from Russian forces.
We visited Dmitrievka, which is 30 kilometers from Kyiv. Several armored vehicles lie completely destroyed.
This is the third tank and armored personnel carrier we have seen on the way from Kyiv to Dmitrievka, and you see how it has been damaged. Totally badly damaged, totally burnt out from inside, and probably there were 8 to 10 people inside when this armored personnel carrier was hit and destroyed. And the number of cartridges lying here, look, the fired cartridges of machine guns are lying all around. On top also, if you see, that is the gun, main gun of the armored personnel carrier, and near that you see the number of fired cartridges lying everywhere. This gives an indication, this is a proof that people inside this fought before they finally got destroyed. They fought, they gave a tough fight to people, and finally anti-guided weapon was fired at them, which destroyed the whole thing totally.
There are telltale signs in the region of the fierce battle between Russian and Ukrainian troops.
Many tanks and APCs are lying destroyed here. This is like a graveyard of tanks and APCs, this area. And this road goes to Kyiv, Irpin, and then to Kyiv. The northwest axis we have all the time been talking about during the war. And this is where the Russians got stalled, on the northwest axis, where they could not penetrate ahead. Otherwise, they would have reached Kyiv city.
Innocent civilians continue to face the wrath of Putin's troops. Businesses, property and lives continue to remain crippled.
I am in the village of Dniprivka, and behind me is business of this man. Before war, it was a flourishing business. It was an oil change or a service station for the cars. What is it? Sergei. It was a car station. It was a service station for changing oil.
Change oil, діагностика, ремонт, також
Remont is repair, change oil, little bit taking care of the cars, yes? Okay. And where is your house? Doma. Give it to the Doma.
мій дім знаходиться в Дмитрівці.
Same, in the same village. He lives in the same village and it was his business.
Russia has deployed all their war machines in Ukraine, which were till days back all directed towards Kyiv.
You see this pin and you see this. From there you set the range. You align this with this and to the target. This is how you fire this kind of disposable rocket launcher. It is so easy to learn. Align two things with a target and you just pull the trigger, and that's how you can aim and learn how to use this weapon. This is a Russian disposable rocket launcher which they have used extensively against Ukrainian targets. You see the markings here. This is all Russian markings, and this weapon has been used extensively by the Russian forces against Ukrainian tanks, armored personnel carriers, vehicles, and also to damage the concrete roadblocks which Ukrainians had put all over this road. This is Rajesh Pawar for India Today.
Dnipro, or Dnipro as some call this, is in the line of Russian fire. The situation here is extremely tense. The administration has asked women, children and the elderly to leave as quickly as possible. Industrial infrastructure and airports have been targeted. The apprehension is the railway station could also be targeted, and that is why the situation remains extremely grim. India Today's Lalit Mohan Joshi and I bring you this ground report. We are at Vauxhall, the central railway station here at Dnipro, and in large numbers, women, children, the elderly, they are leaving the city after a series of missile strikes, and the administration asking people to leave as quickly as possible. There is panic in this area, there is no denying the fact, and women say they want to stay back, but it is for a better future for their children that they are compelled to leave, especially after the intense fighting that's on in Mariupol. The apprehension is that the Russian forces after Mariupol will advance towards first Zaporozhye and then Dnipro, and it's only a matter of time before intense fighting is reported from this area. So while the men carry on the fight, it's the women, the children and the elderly who are leaving for safer areas. And you can look at long queues outside there. There are buses, there are trams and there are trains that are taking people to safer areas here in Dnipro. With camera person Lalit Mohan Joshi at the Dnipro railway station, Gaurav Sawant for India Today. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar exposed the hypocrisy of the West on Russian energy, oil and gas. Now, Dr. Jaishankar is in the United States for the 2+2 dialogue between India and the United States of America. The foreign ministers and the defense ministers of the two countries have met for the fourth time. The first, of course, under this regime. But when a reporter tried to ask a question on India buying oil from Russia at a time when Russia had attacked Ukraine, just listen in to Dr. S. Jaishankar's response, where he asks reporters to do some fact check, no facts, and realize that Europe buys more oil in an afternoon than India in a month. Take a look at this report.
Our total purchases for the month would be less than what Europe does in an afternoon.
This was Minister S. Jaishankar's reality check to the West and all the critics of India's foreign policy amid the Ukraine war. Exposing the anti-India campaign and showing that we stand steadfast in our policy, the External Affairs Minister responded to an American journalist's question on Russian oil imports with the retort, why aren't the same questions being asked of Europe?
I noticed you refer to oil purchases. If you are looking at energy purchases from Russia, I would suggest that your attention should be focused on Europe, which probably we do buy some energy which is necessary for our energy security, but I suspect, looking at the figures, probably our total purchases for the month would be less than what Europe does in an afternoon.
The External Affairs Minister's takedown of the American media has put the focus on Europe's oil dependency on Russia, despite the war. And here are the facts that the West simply can't ignore now. According to data from the International Energy Agency, in 2021, 51% of Russian oil exports were to European Union countries, while India's share was less than 1%. Interestingly, the United States too has now accepted India's stand, conceding that India's Russian oil imports don't violate any existing sanctions, and also requesting India not to import any additional Russian oil.
When it comes to oil purchases, sanctions, etc., I just note that there are carve-outs for energy purchases. Of course, we're encouraging countries not to purchase additional energy supplies from Russia. Every country is differently situated, has different needs, requirements, but we're looking to allies and partners not to increase their purchases of Russian energy.
India's made it clear we will not buckle under any pressure. Our stand is clear. Peace is paramount. A message reiterated by the Prime Minister in his interaction with US President Joe Biden on Monday night.
इस पूरे घटनाक्रम के दौरान मैंने यूक्रेन और रूस दोनों के राष्ट्रपतियों से कई बार फोन पर बातचीत की। मैंने न सिर्फ शांति की अपील की, बल्कि मैंने राष्ट्रपति पुतिन को यूक्रेन के राष्ट्रपति के साथ सीधी बातचीत का सुझाव भी रखा। It manifests
with India making it abundantly clear on every world platform now that we will not give in to any pressure or empty criticism, the United States has now acknowledged India's steps to ensure peace amid this conflict.
At the root of our partnership is a deep connection between our people. On that note, I want to welcome India's humanitarian support for the people of Ukraine, who are suffering a horrific assault, including a tragic shelling on a train station last week that killed dozens of innocent children and women and civilians attempting to flee the violence.
India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar has shut down for once and for all perhaps all the Western commentary, abdicating India's strategic duty on the current war situation. But India has made it amply clear that it will not relent under any pressure and will carry out its own foreign policy. With camera person Himanshu, this is Kamaljeet Sandhu in Delhi for India Today.
This is the Alfred Nobel University here in Dnipro. It's shut. Women, children and the elderly are abandoning this city. It's now virtually a ghost city, nowhere close to what it was before the 24th of February when it was a bustling industrial and education center. But that is all that camera person Lalit Mohan Joshi and I have for you on this special broadcast that comes to you from the banks of River Dnipro. We will continue to report from ground zero as the situation escalates here in Ukraine. Many thanks for watching. And for all the latest news and updates, stay with us here on India.